Hello again YouTube, Jeremy with Four Sons Off-Road. So today we're just gonna share some helpful hints when modifying your Suzuki DA63T. Now, one of the really common issues with the DA63Ts, if you don't do a big enough lift kit, if you're just gonna go with a standard 2-inch lift kit, put a bigger set of tires, you will run into clearance issues with your front fenders. And I'm amazed at how often guys don't do anything about it. So the most common thing is to do nothing other than to remove your, front wheel well fender trim, and just leave that gap open, which definitely looks not that great, and could cause issues going down the road. So we're going to show you how to go from that to this for literally no money and very little effort with no special tools required. Alright, so first things first, you're going to have to remove your old fender trim. Now this pops right off the front of the truck. There's a bolt up at the top here, and then just those little pop clips. There's some all the way down underneath, so just make sure you get them all out. And same thing with your inner fender well, just a couple of screws, and these are attached together kind of at the truck. Pull this all out of the way, and then your next step is pretty simple. I like to start with the actual inner wheel well trim. Now, there's no science to this. You know what? Have fun with it. The biggest hint I can give you is, don't take off more than you need to begin with, because you can always trim more if you're not happy or if there's still rubbing issues. So just be careful with that. But basically, it's kind of nice, and I don't know if you can see that on here, but there's actually some lines, just molding lines on the this front fender lip here. So literally, you're going to have to chop off this whole bottom chunk here. So what I like to do is, again, a Dremel will work, even a nice sharp blade knife will work. Just be careful, and basically you want to take off all of that inner fender lip. Chop off this whole bottom chunk here so that all you're left with is just this small trim piece. Now be careful to leave this trim piece in place at first. Depending on the tires that you're running, you might have to get rid of that as well. But if you do take this away, you don't have a lot of support structure holding this this piece on, so it can get a little bit floppy down at the bottom. But and this, of course, this actually attaches back to your inner fender piece too. So again, just follow that line off. And then actually I like to trim the inside. This is hollow, so I'll trim this inside piece a little bit higher. It's actually about an inch higher than you're going to trim this outside piece. So the outside piece you just trim off there. And you know what? Trim it off, kind of smooth it up, and that's about all you're going to be able to do with that. But what that does is that covers that whole inner, big gap in the door seam. This protects your inner door seal, so if you're getting sticks and rocks and things like that, you're not going to be tearing your inner door seal, which is just going to get really expensive if you have to start replacing stuff like that. Now, the next little thing to do is to do the same thing on your inner fender well piece. Now, again, I like to pick some lines here. We've got just a little bit of a wear line. You can actually see where the fender's been mounted to the truck. So the body of the truck ends here. All the rest of that is just fender that hangs down. So what I like to do, again, this is that little piece that's going to connect to that inner trim. Basically trim it off all the way from here. Follow that line and just follow it all the way across. What that's going to do is cover all your body on the truck, and basically just remove all that stuff that's hanging down beneath the body and frame, so that it's not going to be catching on your wheels when you're steering. And all bolts back in really nice. So your final step is to deal with this bottom body trim piece. So you can quite easily just remove this little clip here. Just turns to the side and pops right out. Pretty simple. And then you do have this tab, which originally held that bottom piece on. So that's about as hard as this whole job gets, is you want to physically cut that tab off nice and flush with the body so you don't have anything hanging out. At the same time, I like to take off this bottom fender edge too. Just kind of zip that off, clean everything up, keep it nice and smooth. You don't really need to remove too much. Again, depending on the tires you're running, you might have to take off more, but again, start small and you can always work up from there. Next, pretty simple. Just tape off this nice body seam, there's a bit of a rib there. You can tape off that seam. And then from the inside, same thing, pretty much just follow along the top. And then what I do is I just take a nice heavy-duty rocker guard paint and, you know, paint off that whole intersection there. Paint off in front, this front trim piece, and you can paint off the little bit that's on the inner edge there as well. That's going to protect the truck and make it look better too, you know. Even from the side here, obviously you can tell that that piece is missing. Once it's all said and done, you know, it definitely is going to look a lot better. And, you know, you're not going to have, well, number one, the clearance issues for sure. And number two, like I say, it looks finished. You know, honestly, most people wouldn't even know that you, you know, did something there. Definitely looks a lot better than leaving that gap wide open, in my opinion. Now, there's lots and lots of ways to go about doing this, so you know what? Do what you're good at. This way literally is going to cost you about $5 for a can of rocker guard paint, and that's about it. You know, I've seen guys, body shops, literally take off the whole lower door sill, trim it all back up, weld it, paint the whole truck, make it look amazing. And you know what? If you've got $5,000 to spend on your truck on bodywork, that's awesome. It'll look great. But for a really quick and easy job, again, to go from that to that, I think it looks pretty good. What do you think?